What's up guys, my name is Mike of Koid Gaming, and last week I put up a video talking about Konami canceling Silent Hills and their treatment of Hideo Kojima and the overall downfall of Konami as a company and their decision to go from console games to mobile games and basically abandoning consoles altogether. And in that video, I made a point to talk about how companies like Platonic Games and Koji Igarashi are utilizing Kickstarter to make the spiritual successors to the games that they want to make without the need for these big publishers looming over them, telling them what they can or cannot make. Now, I was watching the video back and I realized I didn't really talk about that for nearly as long as I should have because I was so blind with rage, and for good reason. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I wasn't angry. I was furious. And because of that, I was not able to focus enough time on that particular topic, the topic of Kickstarter. So I want to dedicate a whole video talking about why, in my opinion, Hideo Kojima and Guillermo Del Toro should utilize Kickstarter in December after Hideo Kojima leaves Konami after the release of Metal Gear Solid 5. It may not look like much at first. It may not look like Kickstarter is going to be exactly what we need, but I want to point something out to you as well. Kickstarter is the reason why Mighty Number 9 is being made. Remember that, and that is the spiritual successor to Mega Man, made by Keiji Inafune. After Capcom wouldn't let him continue the Mega Man franchise, he broke away and started making the new Mega Man, Mighty Number 9. It's thanks to Kickstarter that that game exists. Look at a game like Yooka-Laylee, being made by the guys who made Banjo-Kazooie when they were working for Rare with Nintendo in the Nintendo 64 era. They made Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, and I'm sure they wanted to make more. They wanted to make a Banjo 3, but Microsoft, when they acquired Rare, wasn't having it. They just wouldn't let it happen, and when they did let it happen, it became nuts and bolts, and it clearly was not the Banjo-Kazooie game that they wanted, and it's certainly not the Banjo-Kazooie game that we wanted. So what happened? They broke away from Microsoft. They broke away from Rare. They started up their own studio, Platonic Games, and now they're making the game that they wanted to make. Of course, they don't have the rights to Banjo-Kazooie, so they're making Yooka-Laylee, a brand new IP. And the same can be said with Koji Igarashi, the guy who made Castlevania, the guy who made Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation. It is clear that his vision is not being seen when he was working at Konami. Now, we'll get to Konami in a minute. His vision was clearly not being seen. He wanted to make new Castlevania games, and more specifically, he wanted to make new Metroidvania games. How do we know this? Well, that can clearly be seen with his new project, Bloodstained: Ritual of the Night, a spiritual successor to Castlevania. But it's not Castlevania because he does not own the right to Castlevania, so he had to make a new IP. You see what's going on here? We now have three primary examples, three great examples, and three very hyped examples of people or groups or whole companies even that break away from their main publisher because they are not being allowed to make the games that they want to make. They go on Kickstarter, they create new IPs, and they make the games that they want to make. That's why I want to mention Hideo Kojima and Guillermo Del Toro. With everything that's been going on over the past month and a half, Konami has been getting hate after hate after hate. And honestly, they deserve it at this point. They've stepped on Kojima's legacy. They've erased him from their history, or at least they've tried to. The fans are not letting that happen. And they're not allowing Silent Hills to be made because of power struggles and the firing of Kojima and the poor treatment of not only Kojima but all of his workers. Everything is going wrong for Konami. They're switching over to mobile, and they somehow think that that's where the money is. Konami, I'm telling you right now, the money that you want to make is not in mobile. You are not going to make the money in mobile that you're going to make off of consoles. You're just not. So all of this is going down. Everything is going wrong for Konami, and now we have Hideo Kojima and Guillermo Del Toro sitting by the wayside, and they're not able to make the game that they want to make. And to make it even worse, Guillermo Del Toro has gone out and publicly said that he was having such a good time with Hideo Kojima. They were creating such a beautiful friendship, making this game. Everything was being agreed on. They were both going down the same path with the game. There were no struggles. There was no fallout between those two. It was only between corporate and Kojima, and that's where the problem was. And now, it's already too late. Silent Hills is canceled, and I seriously doubt that anything is going to happen. The only thing that I could possibly see happening is if a company like Sony buys the rights to Silent Hill as a franchise, they bring Kojima and Del Toro along, and they finish the project with them. That would be something that I'd like to see, but the problem is, I just don't see it happening. It seems like Konami is dead set on ruining all of their IPs by butchering them on mobile platforms. That's where Kickstarter comes in. If Hideo Kojima and Guillermo Del Toro went on Kickstarter and decided to make a brand new IP, something completely different, they could easily take all of the ideas that they've had for Silent Hills and apply them to this new game after being crowdfunded by the fans. I mean, just to put it in perspective for you, as I record this right now, the Silent Hills petition to get that game relaunched has 150,972 petitions. 972 signatures. Think about that. If all of those people were willing to give a decent sum of money each to Kojima and Del Toro, they would have a massive budget right out of the gate to make the game that they want to make, and they would just call it something else. Call it, I don't know, Screaming Valleys, whatever. Just as long as it's not Silent Hill or Silent Hills. I mean, anyone who played PT, myself included, would know the events of PT really did not have that much to do with Silent Hill as a whole. It easily could have been a completely different game. That's one of the reasons why no one detected that it was Silent Hills until the very end, because there was no Pyramid Head, there was no Silent Hill the town, none of that. They didn't reference anything from previous Silent Hill games. They left it all up to this original content. Where we are, this house, this character, this father, this murder, this baby in the sink, all of this stuff, the flashlight, the cockroaches, forgive me Lisa, there's a monster inside of me, these puzzles, the refrigerator, all of these things that happened. None of them were in previous Silent Hill games. That is why, one, it was breathing new light into Silent Hill on its own, but at the same time, it easily could have been something else. And that made it ripe for the picking to be a different game at this stage in the game, no pun intended. If Hideo Kojima and Guillermo Del Toro go on Kickstarter and they together say that they want to make the spiritual successor to Silent Hills, I can guarantee you they will break Kickstarter records. It will happen. All they have to do is go on there and say, we want to make the horror game that Konami wouldn't let us make. We need money to do it. Can you help us? I can guarantee you the fans will flock to that Kickstarter and fund it like you would not believe. You think Ukulele was funded quickly? Wait until you see what happens with this game. All we can do now is wait until after E3, and if nothing comes from there, which I really hope it does, I really hope something happens at E3, but if nothing happens at E3, all we can do is wait until the release of Metal Gear Solid 5 so that Kojima can be a free man, and then he and Del Toro, and even Norman Reedus if he wants to, they can team up individually, hire back the guys from Kojima Productions after they get fired, and they can make the game that they want to make under a new IP, and we can finally have the horror game that we were promised. The horror game that was going to redefine the genre and put survival horror back on the map. This was going to be it. And I don't want to see this game die. I want to see this game live on, and I want to see Kojima do everything he has to do to make this game happen. Kojima, Del Toro, Reedus, go on Kickstarter. We will fund this game, and you will not be sorry. What's up, guys? Make sure to check out conservapunk.com, a way to challenge conventions and go against the status quo with the purpose of making something timeless. A way to curse out the ill-willers and debaters with a whisper, all with a sense of decorum. Punk for the gentlemen. conservapunk.com. What's up guys, thanks so much for watching and I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you haven't gotten a chance to already, make sure to check out last week's video which can be found right here. Also, if you haven't gotten a chance to already, make sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. And while you're at it, make sure to check out the rest of Koei Gaming where we upload gaming videos every single week. And as always, game on!